You're listening to the We Are Libertarians Podcast Network. Find all of our shows at wearelibertarians.com.
You can play outside longer if you wear sunscreen. You can fly higher on a half-pipe with a helmet. And you wouldn't jump out of an airplane without a parachute. Your finances are no different. Protecting your future allows you to go after your goals more aggressively. Explore this unique perspective beside an agent with the backing of New York Life. Insurance, investments, retirement, and more. Visit NYL.com to learn more. Investments are offered through registered representatives of NYLife Securities, LLC. Member FINRA SIPC, a New York Life company.
You're listening to the We Are Libertarians Network. Learn more at wearelibertarians.com. Welcome to We Are Libertarians. I'm your host, Chris Spangle. We bring you all of the irreverence modern politics deserves while putting people before political parties. We examine current events from a libertarian perspective with the goal of leaving you better informed. Please be sure to rate and review us on iTunes, like us on Facebook, and become a subscriber on Patreon at wearelibertarians.com. Without your financial support, independent media like this cannot exist. In exchange for supporting our program, we give you great bonus content. This week, we dissected the article that's going around about the 10 things every intersectional feminist should ask her date on the first date, and Harry and I broke down that article point by point and explained why some of the things that were in that article were good and the majority of it were bad. So you can hear that if you're a $5 a month subscriber on Patreon. Great takedown of intersectional feminism. And then this show is crowdsourced, so you can send us news with the hashtag WALNews or in our Facebook group or Discord channel. We are always taking your questions and comments via email at editor@wearelibertarians.com. In fact, this whole episode is going to be sourced from our Facebook page where we ask you about Bitcoin. So please be warned that this show is raw, unedited, and authentic, so the language is sometimes strong and offensive. In the show, again, we're going to talk about Bitcoins for idiots. So I'm not using trademark stuff. My name is Chris Spangle, and with me, returning, is one of my nerd friends, Jesse Riddle. Jesse, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, Chris. How are you?
I'm doing great. That's probably me that left their phone on. It's Jeff Erdman. This little son of a bitch.
He's trolling you.
I have to remove him from Dear Leader's Court because every single time I start a show, he calls me and FaceTimes me.
Bravo, Jeff.
So Riddle is back. Riddle is always featured on the Boss Hog of Liberty podcast. I mean,
Not always.
You're on there I've
been there 3 times.
Yeah, I mean, which is you're very critical of that show, are you not?
I'm critical of all of these shows.
Right. You're an INTJ, aren't you?
Yeah, well, you know.
Yeah, which means asshole.
I want you guys to do well, but I'm super critical as well.
Make that too.
There you go.
Oh, my next guest here for the first time is Jeff Erdman. Jeff, how are you?
I'm amazing.
The only Jeff that will be heard on this broadcast tonight.
Nice.
So he's now trolling me in the chat. So we stream this live to Dear Leader's Court, which is a private Facebook group for our $10 a month Patreon subscribers. And it's really fun because it's a very small group. It's about 80 people who chit chat. You get friendship as well as live streams of the show. And you can chat with us while the show's going on, and I can kind of see the comments and you can interact a little bit. And I made the mistake of putting my friend Jeff Erdman of Barstool Heartland in there, and now he trolls me every single episode, so I apologize for that. Jeff, you and I met 2010, I think, 2009, 2010, I would say.
I believe so. It was back in the Bob Barr days.
Yeah, you're a big Bob Barr fan, were you?
Beat the alternative.
Right. And I was too. I mean, if you're sitting there like looking at the things, I didn't know Bob Barr from Adam, but when I looked at his record versus John McCain and Barack Obama, it was a no-brainer for me.
Right. Yeah, for about 10 minutes I was on Team Obama, and then I discovered libertarianism about 08.
Very similar paths, you and I, yeah.
And been a libertarian ever since.
Yep.
Big L, little L. However you slice it.
Yep. So you were thinking about starting a county party. You and your cohorts did not end up following through on that, but you and I have maintained a Facebook friendship over the years.
Correct.
And I was looking for a second cryptocurrency, let's say expert, but people who at least know anything about Bitcoin that they didn't learn in the last month. There's a lot of Bitcoin experts now.
Oh, they're everywhere.
Definitely.
Right, but there's not a lot of people who knew the knowledge before 2 months ago. So I tried to find people who have been involved in Bitcoin and cryptocurrency for longer than 2 months. And Jeff and Jesse fit the bill. And we're going to talk a little bit in this episode about cryptocurrency and how you can get involved, how you can get invested, what are the pitfalls. We've solicited questions from our Facebook page. But first, I want to take a chance to talk about two things in the news. First, this will be short and sweet. I wrote an article on WeAreLibertarians.com that has been pretty controversial for some reason on the We Are Libertarians Facebook page. And it is about the text messages that were released by Fox News the other day from some of the Mueller team investigators. Peter Strzok was somebody that we've talked about in the past, and they're pretty damning. And I laid out the entire explanation of the Russia investigation, who these people are, and why this is a big deal. It matters in terms of, will the media cover it after being gung-ho about the Russia investigation? And it appears not. CNN today was not covering it at all. But I laid out the entire Russia investigation and explained kind of some of the characters on the Mueller team and what's been going on and why, from the beginning, this has been a very biased investigation. And as we've said over the program, I've said a few times that nothing really, there's maybe a little smoke, but there's no fire that anybody can point to. And it kind of turns out that it was the FBI and the DOJ who really started all this. So these text messages finally pinpointed where the Russia meme came from. So be sure to check that out at WeAreLibertarians.com. And then today, net neutrality was repealed. Jesse, you've asked to come on and talk about net neutrality, so I do want to address it, but net neutrality wasn't exactly repealed. We're not going to go too in-depth because we've done several different shows on this that you can go back and listen to if you want more in-depth, but just to touch on what happened today, what exactly happened today?
All I know is that they voted against, bringing it out,
Yeah.
brought it out. I don't know what that means, though.
So they repealed the Obama move from 2015. So the internet basically reset to 2015, that dark and gloomy period.
Was it, so is it literally starting that time?
Yes.
Everything? Okay.
Correct.
That's what I didn't understand.
Right.
I knew what it was doing. I just didn't know when it took effect.
Yeah, so they basically undid what had been done. And I could be wrong because it's a very long, complicated thing but I mean, are you for or against net neutrality?
I am for free markets.
Okay.
So I mean, So I talked about this on Boss Hog as well, but I don't think that there's a huge libertarian argument being made, which is baffling, that we need the government to protect the internet. And if you're anything like me, the internet to me is property. All of the infrastructure is owned by companies. And if they don't want to serve you, they have every right to do that. You may not like that. I may not like that, but they could do it. So that was my stance. That comes back down to the Jews should never make a cake for a Nazi. If I don't want child porn predators sending predator content across the internet that we know they're doing, but maybe the Justice Departments haven't actually been doing anything, they have every right to stop feeding those people. And they can, based on contract. So,
sure.
But yeah, it's just, so in a long-winded answer, I was for repealing it. And I don't feel like it's going to be that big of a deal because, again, 2014, 2015 was not long ago. Everything kind of worked. And any kerfuffles that happened amongst major players, Comcast and Netflix, they dealt with that themselves and got the content fixed. So yeah,
I mean, if you listen to any interview with Ajit Pai, he doesn't sound like a devil. He sounds like a very intelligent freedom-loving person. I mean, I don't. It's like Armageddon to people on the internet today, and it's just so overblown and so hyperbolic. And I just, trying to reason with people when they're hysterical over something that is so not needed. I mean, it's just, you don't need the hysteria.
I was following the Twitter hashtags and just like mind blown by like how like the comparisons that are being made.
Right.
I was just like, this is way overblown, guys.
Well, that's because it's not rooted in fact or reality or ideology. It's rooted in fashion.
Right.
It is basically people like wanting to look cool to their friends.
Yep.
And so they start virtue signaling, and then they one up each other to the point that it's like we're now at the verbal equivalent on net neutrality of like fishnet jeans on the runway, like that you'd never wear in reality, but to fashionistas it looks cool and it's cutting edge.
Yeah,
like it just you really and I see this on our big Facebook page, the We Are Libertarians Facebook page, all the time. Like people don't read the article; they don't ever deal with what like I post.
Right.
They just deal with whatever reactionary dumb thing comes out of their mouth. Like, and so it's just really disheartening. And net neutrality is just like ground zero of dumb reactionary stuff. Like, I don't know how much you followed it, Jeff. Like, are you into net neutrality? Is this like a trigger for you?
It's not really a trigger. I followed enough to sort of know what's going on. I gut reaction. Oh, it's terrible, right?
Right.
But then once you start reading into it, what?
I was against this decision in Ajit Pai until I listened to like 4 interviews, long form interviews with like Reason and Matt Lewis and some other places, and I was just like, this guy's not crazy. Like,
right.
he actually sounds pretty libertarian if you really get into it.
It's a very libertarian issue.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, everyone's treating it like a First Amendment attack.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, well, you can say whatever you want. You don't have the right to get it distributed in mass, right? So
the other part of it is that the consumers have spoken, and to change the pricing structure to something where you'd pay $14.99 for just Netflix and creating these tunnels,
right?
It just would never happen now because it would be such a PR nightmare for these companies. That's why they're paying Facebook and Twitter to advertise these companies that are against them. Facebook is against Comcast on this issue, and Comcast is paying them money to blast into my Facebook feed that they're never going to do what Facebook is saying they're going to do. Nor would Netflix ever enter into an agreement based on what Netflix, Twitter, Facebook, Google, all these companies said today. None of them would enter into an exclusive deal with these with the ISPs. So we're really arguing like hyperbole. We're arguing straw man. I mean, we're not actually having conversations based on what ISPs will actually do now. And it goes back to 2005 when Vonage basically curried favor with a company on their phone service, and then that's what lit the match here in America for the net neutrality argument. And then it ended up with Ted Stevens of Alaska saying that it's like a big truck. The internet is not. It's not a series of tubes.
There's no tubes.
There's no tubes, and so we're just not at a point where they're realistically going to do what advocates against Ajit Pai are saying they're going to do at this point. They could 25 years down the road, but at this point they're not going to. So, all right. So enough about net neutrality, but I just wanted to touch on it, and if you want to really dive into it more, because I was somebody that was like, I don't know anything about net neutrality, and then I really started digging in, having people on over the last couple months, and this is where I ended up, and you can hear my exegesis on it. So on to Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. So let's first ask, gentlemen, what are your qualifications? What qualifies you, Jesse Riddle?
Well, this was one of the questions.
To talk about cryptocurrency. You're not supposed... Listen, Jesse. Let me explain something to you. I'm an ENFJ, okay? I'm a natural-born showman, and you are an INTJ, so you like facts. I was smoothly transitioning to the questions without them knowing that I'm a dummy who's reading off of a script. I appreciate you pointing out the very obvious point
But we told them that we pulled them from Facebook.
I know it's
but we memorized them.
Right. This
I
is
apologize.
It's all been internalized.
This is why I'm not allowed on.
This is show business. Okay, do you not realize that? Show business in the middle of my kitchen. Here, with fake foam on the walls. So if you watch this on YouTube, because we put the video of every show up on YouTube, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel. I don't think you can tell that this is my living room.
No,
basically.
you can't.
Yeah.
I was curious because I've been here before this was a thing.
Right.
And I was like, I wonder, like, I knew it was like here, but I was like, I didn't understand the camera. The same thing with Boss Hog when I saw it, and then I actually got in the room. I was like, this is not what I imagined.
Yeah. This is much nicer, isn't it?
Yeah. There's cats.
Yeah. I mean, Mittens is over there in her box. She's got an Amazon box that she chills in.
I sit.
Mittens is a huge fan of the Amazon Washington Post Jeff Bezos company because she gets free boxes to sit in all the time. So, but yeah, you are an expert on crypto. What's your experience with cryptocurrency, and how long have you kind of been involved in it?
I've been purchasing it probably for the last 2 to 2.5 years. I've attended a meetup, but they were in Castleton here in Indianapolis. So it's hard to actually get up there. And then, I've talked a lot of people into getting into it over the course of the last probably year or so. A mutual friend, Robert White, he and we watch like The Walking Dead on Sundays, and I'm always trying to like tell him, hey man, you should jump on the boat. And he never does. So he's finally jumped in, deeper than I've jumped. So
really,
yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I got in on Coinbase 2 weeks ago. I put 150 in. I put 50 in at 9,000 on Bitcoin and 100 on 14, basically.
I saw your gains.
And then rode it up until yesterday, and I had taken out of Bitcoin, put it into Litecoin, rode it up to when it looked like it was cresting yesterday, took everything out, doubled my money, basically went from 150 to 300 when I checked out of the system, because I want to use that cash for Christmas presents at this point. Right. So, I'm pretty qualified to talk about the subject now.
Litecoin's falling too, so you made a good choice.
Yeah, well, that's kind of. I was sitting at lunch watching CNBC, and like they're saying short Bitcoin, and my watch flashes, and it's a Bitcoin app, and it says, Bitcoin's falling, and then another app came through, and I was like, you know what? I could use that money for Christmas presents, and then if it falls, I can get back in, and then ride the long investment. But So yes, I'm basically like I'm kind of like the what's that old Warren Buffett of Bitcoin at this point.
There you
go. All right.
So
then you would have hodl.
Yes, which I had to Google this week because
I had to answer that on our non-existent questions.
All right, so you've been in for a couple years.
Yep.
So
and paid attention even longer. It's just when you're first told this, and I feel like this is where everyone is. You try to be like, and everyone's like, it's like PayPal. You're like, that's what you think. And you're like, and then when you get into it, you're like, this is nothing like PayPal.
Yeah.
So
my boss today was asking about it because his son has made quadruple what he put in just a few weeks ago. And it's a pretty significant amount. And, had the app worked right, he would have made $170,000.
Nice.
But still did okay. And so, my boss, who is not technologically knowledgeable, is asking me about Bitcoin. And this is a person who 6 months ago would have gone, that is the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. And so he's like, can you explain to me how to buy this Ripple coin? And I'm like, what? I'm like, what universe am I in? So I was like, honestly, I don't know. Maybe call me tomorrow because I'm going to talk to some dudes tonight that might help me. But yeah, it's kind of hit that point where now everybody wants to get in.
I'll say it reminds me of like we've all been into libertarianism for a while, and you couldn't walk around the streets and hear it being thrown around, and now you hear it being thrown around. You're like, okay, this thing's catching on.
Yeah.
And now like Bitcoin has shot past libertarianism as far as like the frequency of it being used. Yeah. And it's actually being used on Bloomberg all the time. I actually found out about Ripple on Bloomberg probably 10 months ago.
Interesting.
Yeah, so
because JP Morgan Chase is now backing it, right? Or involved?
Well, the whole thing is Ripple. Not to dive into that, but it's trying to work with banks to help move funds across, I guess, countries or something. So, But yeah, it was just I made a tweet. I remember tweeting like, "Hey, it's really cool to see like cryptocurrency guys on Bloomberg, being talked to in a serious manner and actually being in like the main stage. Whether or not I don't necessarily care about Ripple, but it was cool to see that was actually happening."
Yeah, and just for the sake of posterity, so if you're listening to this like 2 years in the future, Bitcoin right now is at 16,800. Ethereum is at 682. Ripple's at 0.7880, so 78 cents. Litecoin 281, Dash 917. It was 700 2 weeks ago when I talked to Roger
Ripple
Paxton.
was 25 cents, I think, this morning.
Okay, and then wow.
It might have been yesterday, but
Some of the other NXT 69 cents.
yeah, Neo has actually jumped up a lot, I think, in the last 6 months.
Dogecoin is
It's way up too.
It's a third of a cent. It's up 8%. So just for posterity's sake, but Nexus 3.2, that's one that I hear a lot.
IOTA would be one that you would hear often too. Everyone's all about IOTA.
Okay.
Just like number 4 or 5 in the market cap.
Gotcha. Okay. And then back when you and I first met, Jeff, back in 2009, 2010, I mean, Bitcoin, I don't know what it was, but it was very low. It's kind of like Litecoin was this year, where it was 3 cents. I mean, it was nascent, and only libertarians talked about it, and only like people with black and yellow flags on their profile picture talked about Bitcoin.
And no one had any clue. And even the ones who talked about it weren't necessarily buying it. It was just this new.
Look around. You can find cars like these on AutoTrader, like that car riding your tail. Or if you're tailgating right now, all those cars doubling as kitchens and living rooms are on AutoTrader too. Are you working out and listening to this ad at the same time? Well, multitasking pro, cars like the ones in the gym parking lot are for sale on AutoTrader. New cars, used cars, electric cars, maybe even flying cars. Okay, no flying cars, but as soon as they get invented, they'll be on AutoTrader. Just you wait. AutoTrader.
Government-free currency, and so everyone's interest gets piqued. Doesn't necessarily mean you're buying it at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And I was one of those people until recently.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those things where, oh, Bitcoin, that sounds pretty cool. I'll look into that someday.
Yeah.
And then time keeps passing, and the value stays low, and then at some point you think, man, I'm hearing Bitcoin more and more often, and you just dig into it. And I'm kind of like you. I got in late, but I've been reading about it and finally decided, hey, it's time to get some skin in the game. And, you can't really understand it unless you buy some and then see where it goes. So,
right. I totally agree. I mean, there were people who 2013, like, hey, can I donate to the program in Bitcoin? I would have gotten full Bitcoins. Like, I would have gotten like
you
5
multiples.
I would have gotten like 10 Bitcoins over the course of like 6 months, and it's like, I don't understand it. I don't know how to set all this stuff up. I don't want to deal with it. So I didn't. Now I'm regretting it. And I'm thinking about like all the, libertarian Ron Paul girls who in 2009 were like, send me Bitcoins and I'll send you nudes. Like, can't imagine how many of those girls are like super rich. I'm sure Ian Freeman's sitting on a pile of money today. So I think for me, I'd heard about it since 2009, 2010, but it was when Dogecoin came out, and I was like, okay, this is all a joke, because I understood the concept of fiat money, because as I explained to my boss today, it's kind of the same concept as your credit card. Like, if you're going, people want to bash Bitcoin and cryptocurrency as it's not backed by anything. It's a bubble. It's this or that. I'm like, you're really like not doing anything different than what we do with regular money. You're talking about the U.S. dollar, which can be inflated massively, which steals your savings. And it's bet on all the time in, foreign exchanges, and people bet against the dollar, and they write it up and down in these currency exchanges. So it's sort of the same thing with the dollar, and then it's just sort of numbers on an app. Like Apple Pay through my Chase card. I don't ever touch cash. I don't have gold. I don't have anything that's hard. It's just all numbers in an app. I mean, so it's sort of the same concept. It's whatever people put their faith into at this point, which is the scary part, because the US dollar, used to be backed by gold, and now it's backed by the full faith and credit of the United States. Well, when Roy Moore and Donald Trump are the United States government, there's not a lot of full faith and credit there. So you're really talking about something that is numbers in an app. And, as Roger Paxton said, he said, the internet is the greatest tool for freedom and liberty in human existence, and number 2 is cryptocurrency. Because what it does is it detaches money from government systems who have the power to tax and inflate those dollars and control those dollars and steal basically from populations there and tax through taxes. So cryptocurrencies are, do you guys think that it is the future of money?
Starting with me, yeah, I think I don't think Bitcoin will be the end all be all by any means, for reasons we can talk about later. But I do believe if the technology, the blockchain technology, will be something that currency uses moving forward. Whether that is issued, through decree, or if that is done, through voluntary means, one of the two, it will become the norm for sure.
Could you explain what blockchain is? Because this is the part where I get totally lost.
So this is kind of sort of difficult to say, but so when things get put into what they call blocks, which is literally just like an amount of information, right? So they're usually limited in megabytes to what they'll actually be. So I think Bitcoin's stuck, I think, at 1 still, which is part of the reason it's so slow, because you get backup from processing. So anyway, 1 megabyte, all this data fits in here, and then those things get processed, and those things get signed with a hash, which is like a unique number, and that's what chains these together. So like this one will have a hash pointer when it gets made to the next one, and it has one from the one before. So they get linked through these like hash pointers. And that's how, and then they get built on top of each other. So that's how you can go through.
So put it into English for me, and Jeff, jump in here if you can. Translate what Jesse just said.
All right.
But is it like a train? You have a train, but then in each of the coal cars is 1 megabit of data, and then the links
for blocked Bitcoin,
right? For Bitcoin data, right? And then linking each one of these chains, these megabits of data, is that special hash, which is a special individual code between those two chains, right?
And I think the key is it's public and it's distributed, right? So this chain, this ledger,
correct.
Whereas if it was at a bank, the bank would be the only person to see that, and if they manipulated it, you would never know.
Okay.
But with Bitcoin and cryptocurrency and the blockchain, it's distributed, right? So this person here has a copy of the chain and that hash and all of that. This person has it. This person has it. This person has it.
Every person in the Bitcoin exchange, or every person who has a Bitcoin,
it's the miners, right?
So miners will have a copy, and then nodes will have a copy. So full nodes would say. So you can download an application off of bitcoin.org. I believe that's where you can get it. And that application can function as a wallet as well as a node. So you can send money to it, and then it will sit on your computer, and it will just start absorbing the blockchain. And you will have a file on your computer that just continually grows to maintain a copy of the ledger. So the nodes actually are crucial to the system because that is what helps distribute it, right? So when Bitcoin was like not very popular, you saw like nodes skyrocket when like Bitcoin kind of took off in I think 2010 or 2011 when a lot of people like first heard about it, and then like nodes started going offline because popularity died, and then the resurgence, you see nodes spike back up again. There's I think it's like BitNodes or bitnodes.io or something. You can see
are these nodes the actual computers that are doing the mining?
No. The miners are doing completely something different. They're helping confirm transactions.
Okay.
So when the transactions get put into the pool, the nodes help push that around and like help like move it through the ledgers, or through the nodes, and then the miners will get those and then put them together, and then they have to solve a very complicated math problem, which essentially in Bitcoin, I believe, is they have to generate a hash that is equal to or lower than the hash that they have there. That part is a little hazy to me, but like, anyway, they generate these hashes and they have no idea what the hash is. So they just keep generating them until they get a number that is lower than, and then they receive Bitcoin in order for that. And then like that fuses everything together.
Okay. So the nodes and the miners and the application that you download, those, it's like a pool of computers talking to each other. Peer-to-peer. So kind of like LimeWire, basically, like Napster back in the day.
Napster was not peer-to-peer.
Okay, but
LimeWire, because all those Morpheus things.
Right. So like LimeWire, when I was downloading, so to put it into terms that like I can understand, I put an MP3 on my computer. I've got 10 megabits of, Green Day.
Right.
Because that's when LimeWire was coming out. I've got the album Nookie ready to sell off to the internet. I put it into the special folder. I upload it to the LimeWire system. My computer then starts talking to all the other LimeWire computers and applications, and those bits start to transfer amongst each other.
For the ones that are asking for it. Yeah.
Right. And so soon my copy of Green Day's it's Nookie, right?
No,
I'm thinking of...
you're thinking of Limp Bizkit. That's what I was
yeah.
confused.
Okay,
I was like,
right.
I've got Limp Bizkit in the
You're
car.
thinking
dude.
Dookie.
We should hang out.
Dookie, yes.
Dookie.
So let's go with Limp Bizkit, because I was never a Green Day fan. I'm a big Limp Bizkit fan. So I put up my copy of Nookie, and because it's early 2000s, and so my copy of Nookie then becomes a standard within the peer-to-peer computer system.
Yeah.
So am I close?
They do hashing there too. That's how they know. That's how they knew which files were the same. So they would say, "Oh, this hash matches this hash. These are the same files," and then they knew who to pull from.
Okay.
So hashing is very important when it comes to like serialization and stuff. So, yeah.
Because like hashing is really important when it comes to internet security, because it's like, is it a form of encryption? Like, how does hashing work?
Yeah, so I'm not a cryptographer and I don't play one on this podcast, but but yeah, essentially you're taking data and then depending on which algorithm you use, it generates a string of fixed length for each data it receives. So it could be a bunch of data, it could be one little letter, but it will be a representation by a fixed length of numbers and digits, alphanumeric, I should say. So
okay, so I mean, anything to add to kind of the technical aspect of all this?
No, I was thinking, okay, your example with the CD, right? You distribute it to the nodes, so you've got your Dookie album out there. But I think, correct me if I'm wrong, the difference is you don't just put it out there for anyone. In the case of, say, Bitcoin or cryptocurrency, right, you want to send that album to a specific person,
right,
or just a couple songs from that album to a specific person. And once they're gone, they belong here and not to you anymore.
Right.
And all these nodes that's going out to, they are all keeping track of that transaction. Correct. And building that chain to say, okay, on this day at this time, Chris Spangle gave 2 songs from his Dookie album to Jeff Erdman, and they're his now.
Correct.
And that's where this distributed comes in. Like all of these peer networks all agree that happened.
Exactly.
And no one can take it back.
Yeah, because that's really why Bitcoin took off is we've had this stuff, like there's this thing called the Merkle tree and all this stuff and the blockchain that itself, like the concept of it has been around for I won't say a super long time, but for a while, before Bitcoin ever came around. So
you mean like 20 years?
Yeah, well, it was like
in internet terms.
I was reading like about some stuff. Yeah, it was like the 80s or 90s, like this concept of putting things together. So yeah, the nodes are kind of coming to a consensus of what happened. And that is what prevents double spend, which was the biggest problem. And
okay.
So pretty much what like Satoshi Nakamoto solved or put forth in the Bitcoin white paper was a way to prevent double spend.
Okay.
And as soon as like, they're like, oh, we can actually use this to create the currency now.
Okay.
So yeah, the nodes help prevent double spend, and that is why it's important to have all those nodes, because if you controlled like a mass generation of nodes, you could alter the blockchain and kind of like lie to it.
Okay, so what he did is you can't spend something twice, or
you can't
or
put
say-
up two files, and like this is kind of getting the smart contracts or whatever, but you can't like put a file here and give this a file. It's going to come to a consensus and say, no, you did this.
Okay, so if I put an order to buy a Bitcoin, all the nodes are going to say, no, Chris Spangle only gets one 1/18th of a Bitcoin, for instance.
Right.
Okay. So, and Satoshi Nakamoto, no proof. Satoshi, there's no proof, but there's also been no denial from Harry Price that he is Satoshi Nakamoto. But he is the kind of the quote unquote founder of Bitcoin.
He's the entity.
So I guess this complicated algorithm and math and nodes and all of this is what keeps people, what I would say, I would call myself in a lot of ways normies. Like, I'm a normie in a lot of ways, and I'm trying to translate the world, the libertarian world, to normies, and in an effort to bring more normies into the libertarian world. And I think this complicated technical aspect of it, where it's very hard to conceptualize, is why people like me early on just didn't get into it.
People get fixated on it.
Yeah, and I know that there are people, and listen, this is high level for idiot stuff. I'm the idiot, and I'm sure there are listeners of ours that are tearing their hair out right now, going, I could have explained that better, or you forgot this part, and like, I get that, and we can.
We're sorry.
Once I kind of get my grasp of what this stuff means, then we can have those deeper level conversations. But you Bitcoin crazed nut jobs who have been in this since 2009, like, give the rest of us a chance to kind of catch up. So that's what we're doing here, and I think that complicated aspect is why a lot of us just haven't. And then there's like a million different ways to get in, and like, Roger Paxton said, you should try Helium, and then I tried to sign up for Helium, or no, it was Dash. You should buy some Dash coin. And I'm like, I don't know how to do this. I don't know which exchange to pick. I don't know how to get into Ripple. I'd like to. My boss said, like, I can tell you how to get into Bitcoin. Go buy the Coinbase app, because they made it easy for me. I don't even understand it, but I just go, okay, well, these guys are adding 100,000 a day. The market is saying these guys are probably decent players in the market in terms of not being pieces of garbage. Friends that I respect and understand this say Coinbase is safe, whereas like some of these other coins, you just don't know how to get into it. So it's just very confusing. But I think the first and foremost, like, I can conceptualize gold. There's 130 million ounces of gold in the world, and that's all there will ever be, or whatever the number is. And so that rarity, that cap on it, and then dividing the gold and splitting it and melting it down and splitting it into coins, and here's an ounce, and let's melt this down and put it into 800 coins, and this equals an ounce, and this price is... I get that math, but I don't quite get what gives cryptocurrency its value. Like, what makes it valuable? Is there scarcity to this that makes this valuable?
Yeah, so I don't know if you want to go first, we could switch or whatever, but
I struggle with this very question, right? I mean, they say, okay, well, there's only 21 million, right? Oh, there's scarcity, so they must have value because you can't inflate it.
Right.
But why is it valuable still? If there's 20 of them or 21 million of them, how do you value it?
Right.
And what gives it that intrinsic value?
I mean, there's only a limited number of like original Thai Beanie Babies, but they're damn near worthless.
We've agreed as a society that baby beanies are no longer these beanies are just not worth any. Pogs are not worth anything.
I want to bring Pogs back, but that's a separate issue.
I have a whole lot of Pogs in my mom's attic that I could sell.
We should play sometime.
So I guess, as Rick Irvine says, market demand sets the value.
Yeah, that's what I said in my notes. And to the, that essentially that's what it is. That's what I find this like a really beautiful thing, is because, again, we don't have any like central authoritative figures issuing, or entities, whatever, issuing a currency. Through voluntarism, we have chosen stuff. We are actively engaging, actively accepting, trying to improve. And I think the value might be inflated, but the value is still there. There's a huge amount of value. So yeah, the 21 million, that's specific to Bitcoin. Some cryptocurrencies have more than that. So that's kind of like why Litecoin is valued less in theory, right? Like, I think there's supposed to be like 88. It's like 1/3 of whatever Bitcoin is roughly. So, that the scarcity itself is that, like there's never going to be more than 21 million. And we already know that there's going to be less than 21 million because they keep getting lost and stolen. So that in itself is going to just, the people are going to keep losing them because
I think I read somewhere up to 20% has already been lost.
Oh yeah. They're and
will never be recovered.
I know people who got into it before I did. And like, they're like it's on a hard drive somewhere. I'm like, bring it to the office and I will find this and you can pay me a percentage.
Right.
Because it's worth my time.
Yeah, someone just commented in the chat that, gold is pretty, so that's why we have determined that it has value.
Right.
And there's really no value to just this piece of metal. It's just the fact that human beings have agreed that this thing has value.
Right.
And that's and if you look at the stock market, for instance, yes, there are hard assets within a company, but they're, like a media company like this. There's a value to we are libertarians.
Right.
Like, the hard asset value of it is very little. Like, if you were to acquire my company, the board, the microphones,
a couple grand,
you're gonna sell it for very little, but the ability to reach tens of thousands of people,
right,
is the real value of the company, and that's based on faith. If it comes out that I'm Bill Cosby 2.0, then the company loses all its real value. Right. Leo Laporte has very little real hard assets in Twit, for instance. In This Week in Tech, Leo Laporte is the value, and his company makes $10 million a year because he exists.
Right.
And so you're really just kind of, it's really the full faith and credit. It's the full faith of Leo Laporte's reputation and what credit we're willing to give him. So in criticizing Bitcoin, you're really just kind of parroting anti-Bitcoin propagandist commentary.
Yep.
People who don't want you to take your $10,000 and put it into Bitcoin, into a highly speculative market. They want you to put it with them in an ETF that's going to get you 21% over the course of 10 years. So a lot of these people who are criticizing cryptocurrency are not telling you the whole truth because they have a vested interest in you staying in the traditional institutions of financial investing and the currency that we use every single day. They don't want us opting out.
Right. And I think that's why I think it's, I don't want to call it a bubble because I just don't, but I think that it is overvalued because people are looking for their short-term gains. Like no one, I want to say no one, very, very, very few people, as far as a percentage, actually want to keep using Bitcoin for a currency, right? Most people are looking for short-term gains for USD. That's what they're doing. And I think the reason we're seeing this huge explosion is twofold, two-sided, not really two-sided, but two things have gone into it. One, the same reason you didn't get into it, or you probably didn't get into it, and a lot of people didn't get into it, and the reason I didn't get into it is because it was very hard to obtain. Right? So like back in the day, like Coinbase didn't exist.
Right.
So like getting it was like I have to sign up with some shoddy exchange and hope that I can like put some money on it and then get it. And then like I still get like really like butterflies in my stomach when I'm trying to send crypto across the wire because it's still not a good fluid system. Like you're like, I'm going to put this hash here for this, this wallet address and send it. And you hope that you got it right, because if you don't, it can go into the ether and it will never come back.
Well, that would be a problem for me.
Yeah, it can be scary. I've done it before.
Yeah, a coworker at work, he signed up for Coinbase, and they went to pull an ETF, an exchange trade, out of his bank account, $50, and it didn't go through. His account didn't work or whatever, and so they just said, we'll cancel that, sent his $50 back. And so he has the ease of talking to the company to get out of that.
Right.
Whereas it didn't seem like 2 years ago you even had something like that on some of these exchanges.
Yeah, I mean, some of like Coinbase again is pretty reputable. It's got a lot of money backing it, a lot of big names. I think it was one of the founders of Netscape or Mozilla or Fox or something. One of the guys, Netscape, is backing them. He owns a big investment firm now. But a lot of exchanges are still sketchy.
Right.
Like, you can easily get into Coinbase and buy a couple $100 worth of crypto. Most exchanges, like you cannot usually withdraw without proving some sort of ID. So at least that's how most of them are moving to that way. And I think that's because they know they're going to go down soon or get infiltrated, which is the biggest problem right now with crypto.
Which explain that, please.
So, when this stuff was all coming out, like when Bitcoin got, written, I don't think like Satoshi wanted exchanges to be a part of the picture. But that is really the only way we can get these things to like move fast. And what has happened is you get a lot of people, myself included and others, who are putting all of this money on and kind of breaking trust by storing our wallets, which when we talk about wallets on here, because we haven't really dove into the lexicon of crypto, but a wallet is essentially a file, and that file is essentially like a digital version of the wallet that you would carry with you every day, right? So you have your coins in your wallet, and that wallet, it would be like taking your wallet and putting it at the bank, right? And maybe a security deposit box or something. And there's nothing preventing the feds from coming into your bank and taking that from you. Versus it being in your house or just somewhere else.
Sure.
It's very easy for them to come in and just take your shit.
And we've seen in like Greece, where Greece did the haircut, where Greece basically said, hey, we're in financial trouble. We're going to cut.
Freeze accounts.
We're going to take 10% of everybody's bank accounts, and that's just ours now.
Yep.
That happened in Greece and led to rioting.
Yeah. And word of advice, if you're doing this and you're really serious about it and you're going to put a lot of money in, I would not keep that stuff at the exchange if possible. The problem with that is it makes it harder to understand because you have to manage your wallets.
Okay.
There are like multi-coin wallets around. One for the iPhone is called Jaxx, Jaxx. And the other is Coinami for Android. Those are probably the two popular ones. I'm sure somebody else can chime in online, or if anybody else here knows of other multi-coin wallets. But I would try to get my coins out of the exchange if you plan on holding or hodling them for a very long time.
Here's what we're going to do. So, because we're going to leave stuff out of this episode that is probably need to know, because we only have so long and our knowledge only goes so deep. So if you want to get in on the discussion and you want to ask a question, or if you want to amend something that you heard in this program, go to wearelibertarians.com, and if you scroll down on the right-hand sidebar or on your phone, you've got to scroll to the bottom because of the way that the mobile site's set up. You can join our Facebook group, and we've got about 1,300 people in there, and there's a lot of people I've seen over the last couple months as our audience has wanted to get into crypto. They've asked questions of the group, and there's been a lot of knowledgeable people in that group to give a lot of good answers. So if you want to ask questions that you don't have answered here, then please join our Facebook group, and we've got a lot of people in there that can help you, or join the Discord, which is also there as well. Those people are hardcore crypto people, and so they can help you out as well. So, and if you feel like we missed something, please let us know. So, I hear a lot of tulip mania. Can either of you explain tulip mania and exactly what that means? I know it has something to do with like Holland or the Netherlands, or that's the same thing, or Denmark or whatever.
I'll try to explain it in layman's terms or useful idiot terms. So the in Holland, right? The tulips, as I understand it, came from somewhere else. They were this new great thing that no one understood. Only rich people could have them because they were the only ones that could afford them, and they wanted them in mass quantities. And so the price of tulips just went up and up and up and up. until it finally came crashing down, because there's no real reason for tulips to cost what they cost. It was just a mania. Am I completely off base here?
No, I've the first time, I won't say it's the first time I've heard of tulip mania, but the first time I actually cared to like kind of look into it was Glenn Beck did a special. I don't want to say it's a special. On part of his show, he did some Bitcoin stuff a couple days ago, and he talked to Charlie Lee, who was the founder, creator of Litecoin, which is typically referred to as Bitcoin's silver. If Bitcoin is gold, Litecoin would be silver. And he was like, why isn't this like tulip mania and whatever? So I was like, what the hell are they talking about? So yeah, I kind of looked into it. I looked into it a little bit more today. And yeah, from what I can tell, it was something reserved for the upper middle class and the rich. And it was something that they would buy into. Like artificially inflated the cost of tulips.
Yeah. During the Dutch Republic in 1637, was the first recorded speculative bubble. So, which is probably why we still talk about it.
It only lasted for like a year.
Right. So
67, 68 or something.
So yeah, it's kind of the most famous crash. It's metaphorically used for anything. I mean, tulip mania, I've heard about it as, during the Tea Party years when people were talking about the U.S. dollar, that we're going to get hyperinflation. It will be like tulip mania. So it's... I mean, is it something... I mean, I have to think that like Bitcoin and cryptocurrency is in a bubble at this point. I mean, what do you guys think?
I think it's in a bubble, but I don't see that... Personally, I don't think that the bubble is going to burst anytime in the short or medium term.
Right. But
I have no real...
reason.
I mean, how do you know that, right? Because unlike stocks where you can look at a financial statement, say this is the value based on earnings times a multiple, what gives Bitcoin its value? Just what people are willing to pay for it.
Right.
And how do you temper that against some other measure to know if it's over or undervalued or what it is? I think we're still in that market discovery mode. And as long as the normies are getting into it, it's just going to keep going up because there's no reason for it not to.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's going to go up until people can afford it. But the problem is that it's a fractional currency, right? So like you don't just go and buy one Bitcoin. You go and buy a partial Bitcoin. It goes up to the eighth power, or not the eighth power, but like to the eighth decimal place. So you could buy 0.0 to the seventh plus one or whatever. It's probably wrong math, but
you can put like that's part of it is if I get the Robinhood app and I want to buy stocks,
right?
I have to buy a stock on like the Robinhood app if I want to just be purely speculative on my phone, okay? And I've got $100 to play with. I can put 50 in Robinhood and 50 in Coinbase to put between the three that are in there, because like this is kind of what I've been doing a little bit, like with the Robinhood app. You can invest. You can go and do research and invest in a company, and there's the very slow growth with it. Something like Stash, which is a cool app that you can invest, partial or a monthly into ETFs, and it grows. Mine has grown 0.05%, but it's really about long-term savings. Whereas with Coinbase, it's like I made $150 in 2 weeks. Right. You know what I mean? And I got out the second it looked like it was starting to go down yesterday, just because I'm like,
FUD.
I'm like, I had a good run. Like I'm not the type of person who's really going to use Bitcoin. I might use it as a currency. I don't know, but like I'm not at a point in my discovery of this new marketplace where I could tell you how to spend a Bitcoin. Like, I would love to take Bitcoins because I see there's value to people, and I could see how this long-term could be a great escape from the fiat money system. But I don't know how to use it as real money at this point, and I'm sure there are plenty of people who are investing in mobile apps who are about to solve that problem for me, and then that's really when you're going to see a lot of growth, because then people are going to go, oh, maybe I can... Right now, I think it's kind of a novelty for a lot of people. For people like me who understand that this is a secure technology, that this is something that is a volatile thing. Like Bitcoin got up to 1,000 and everybody got real excited, and then it dropped significantly.
Yeah,
and then it's
like 200,
right. It's a free market, and with free markets you get a lot of ups and downs, and And I think it's, in a lot of ways, a great way to teach people about what life with a free market would actually look like, because this is how a free market would actually operate, where you're going to have sudden crashes, and there's going to be consequences, so you better prepare for that and in your long-term planning.
Yep.
But there will be recovery.
Exactly. Quickly. Within a very short amount of time, it recovers quickly. So I look at it as a great opportunity. I think that it is in a price bubble right now, but long-term, I think you're going to see a lot of people jumping into it, and really, it's not going to bottom out at 800. I mean, I think there's going to be a floor with it, and I think we're not at the peaks of this.
I think we're still in the basement.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's. I was reading something the other day, or I was watching a video or movie, or not movie, sorry, listening to a podcast, and someone was talking about it would have to reach like $50,000 or something in order for it to be at the same market cap as gold, or something. I can't remember what the relationship was, but I mean, yeah, I guess it is possible. I don't understand, I'm not going to dare to say I understand market caps enough growth for Bitcoin, because to me, I believe it's overvalued right now. I think it is it's FOMO, fear of missing out. Like, I think that's what it is. And people are just blindly throwing money at it, not understanding what the fees are, the transaction fees are, because Coinbase is going to take some money from you. Not only that, but you do have to pay the Bitcoin network when you do transactions. And sometimes that can be upwards to anywhere between 15 and $20 on a transaction. So you better hope you're sending over $20. At one time so we have a Bitcoin ATM up on Allisonville, and I went up there with my friend Mark, and I was like trying to get him to buy into some crypto. And I said, hey, let's go to this ATM. I want to check this out. I want to feel this experience, because I've not felt it yet. So, we drove up there, and I bought some Bitcoin on my way up there from Coinbase. And then when I got there, like, I wanted to cash out, and I forget what it took from me, but ATMs, just FYI, if you do want to purchase Bitcoin, you can buy it from an ATM. They typically are going to be charge you a higher rate, and they're usually, for those who have ever bought silver or gold, their spot price for Bitcoin is extremely overpriced, but there is a little bit more anonymity to it. So,
what's that word?
Anonymity.
Anonymity. Anonymity?
Anonymity?
Yeah, you're anonymous.
Anonymous.
Okay.
Anonymity.
Right.
Anonymity.
I was like, is that some sort of super crypto tech word? I don't know.
Maybe I'm saying it wrong. I don't know.
I don't
anonymity?
know. Yeah, we're from Indiana. We don't know.
So, but anyway, so I got my car, and I said, all right, I'm going to show you Bitcoin and why it sucks, in my opinion. So I sent him $1 in Bitcoin, like whatever a Bitcoin was. It cost me $2 to send it to him, and he's sitting right next to me in my car.
Right.
So I was like, and then I was like, and you're not going to get it for like at least an hour. I was like, so this is the problem we have right now. So Bitcoin right now, transactions, it can only handle about 7 transactions per second.
Okay.
So yeah, it's a massive problem inside the Bitcoin network.
It's not a problem for all crypto. That's just a problem specifically for Bitcoin.
Yeah, I mean, all blockchains have transaction issues, but some of the fastest are like sub-minute. Well, sorry, I said that wrong. That's confirmation time. Some of them are faster than others. Like the 7 kind of deals with how big that block is.
Okay.
And that's kind of why Bitcoin forked. For people that don't know what a fork is, it's kind of like taking the code base of Bitcoin, copying it, and then starting something new with it.
Okay.
And so that's kind of what happened. There was like a hard fork, and people went with Bitcoin Cash. A lot of people who were really crucial to Bitcoin's growth jumped to Bitcoin Cash.
Okay.
And it's hovering about $2,000 today. This happened back in August. So, they increased the block size so they could get more transactions through and keep the transaction rates down. So again, this is the free market trying to solve these problems, albeit there are organizations or committees, your favorite word, behind these things to kind of like vote them what happens to the actual projects themselves.
Okay. So Jesse and I sit on the State Central Committee of the Libertarian Party of Indiana. It's very slow to get anything done because you've got people from across the state getting together in a room once a quarter to have a discussion. You got to persuade people to your opinion. I'm very opinionated and anti certain things, so is Jesse. We usually see eye to eye, but if we disagreed, we'd argue with each other. And so anytime you have a committee, it's very hard to get things done. So you're saying every one of these cryptocurrencies is backed by like a committee like that, making decisions on the I mean, there's like, it seems like there's hundreds of these things, but let's tailor it to like the top 5 or top 10 or whatever.
All right.
But just in general,
So good thing I think you said the top 5. Dash is around there. So Dash is one of when I abandoned Bitcoin a few years ago, I bought in at Dash at like $3.50. What really appealed to me with Dash,
then, would you love to donate to We Are Libertarians at this point?
I still haven't cashed out.
Okay.
So
when you do, let me know.
But I've switched from
Daddy
Dash.
needs a new microphone.
I've switched from Dash. So what I did, the reason I chose Dash was I saw the node issue that I've talked about earlier where nodes were in decline. And this is a big problem with Bitcoin. I don't know why Bitcoin Cash hasn't fixed this, but whatever. So what Dash ended up doing is Dash is also a fork from Bitcoin. And they implemented some anonymity to Bitcoin. So Bitcoin is pseudo-anonymous. Like we said, it's a public ledger. If you share your wallet address, your public wallet address, because you have a public and private key, that's how you get in and out of your wallet. If you share your public, which is what you give to people, it's like giving them your phone number, they can send you Bitcoin. As long as anyone knows what that is, they can track when you're receiving your ins and outs of your wallet. So that's why it's not anonymous. It's pseudo-anonymous. And by that, it's kind of like my definition of VIP, where it's only intellectual property until you tell someone else about it.
Right.
So until you publicize your wallet, then it's public and everyone knows who you are on the blockchain. So Dash added layers of security, not security, but privacy to that. And then they also brought in this concept of what they call a master node. So they still have mining, but if you owned 10,000 Dash, you could become what you call a master node, and you would also get rewarded for keeping your node online.
Okay.
So that was kind of what interested me, and I tried to get people to buy in at the time, which would have only cost us like, I don't know, it was 1,000 Dash. That's what you needed at the time. And I was like, well, we can spend $3,500 and then we'll have like this revenue generator that we can just operate as a company. And the guys I worked with at the time were like, again, I don't know what crypto is, whatever, you're
right, yeah,
full of shit. I'm like, no, guys, I'm telling you. And today, like when we say Dash was $950.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we would have got 50% of the reward.
Wow.
For every transaction or something. I don't know if it's every transaction, but the way that it works out, there's a calculator that tells you what you pay out. So anyway, they're incentivizing people to keep the network up. Those people also get voting rights in Dash.
Okay.
So people look at that as like centralization because you have master nodes running. And I would kind of agree with that. Like people who got in early kind of got like, it's like shooting someone in the foot before a race. Like they're already ahead.
But you also kind of, I mean, if you're getting in,
you should know what you're doing.
Yeah, exactly.
That was my art. That's
right.
How I've morally dealt with this is like,
right.
If you got in at the bleeding edge, that means you're really close to this.
Sure.
And you're probably pretty passionate about it.
Right.
So you are the people who I want voting on things. But
yeah, you could run into like the Roman problem where, only the patricians are running everything, but
right.
But you have the freedom to leave and
right.
go to a different coin if you really wanted to cash
exactly.
out. Okay. So yeah, and a couple of comments from the chat here on the Facebook live video feed in this private Patreon Facebook group. Mining has become harder in Bitcoin, and so that is limiting it, and so that is leading people to kind of go elsewhere. And really, whoever solves the usability problem is really going. I mean, Bitcoin is not the coin; it's the Kleenex right now. But this is a very rapidly changing industry, it seems. And as long as the government doesn't start regulating, which they're trying to. Dianne Feinstein, you are the worst. I think it's Senate Bill 1231.
There's a House bill thing in here too.
Yeah, I think it's Senate Bill 1231 that's being discussed right now. It's in one of our previous shows in the title. Bitcoin's in the title. And we talked about it. It was last Tuesday. So whoever solves that usability problem, like when I really started like paying attention was when I talked to Roger Paxton in our last League of Liberty show, which is for our Patreon subscribers only, where I get together with my 3 other close podcasting friends in the libertarian movement, and we do a show together. And he was talking about Dash and how Dash has the ability, you can buy all kinds of different things in New Hampshire with Dash. Like you can go to the grocery store and restaurants and dry cleaning and all kinds of things with Dash. And it's become very easy to use.
It's faster than Bitcoin.
Yeah, and like what is the wallet that like Helium and Dash needs? But it is, hold on just a second, it is Uphold, and you can buy Dash pretty easily with that, it looks like. So,
I didn't know that.
But yeah, so, and it's, to me, the coin that becomes like the 800-pound gorilla in the room is going to be whoever has the ease of use. And part of what makes our current banking system so easy to use, like I'm a Chase customer. I couldn't imagine being a small banking customer. Like with Chase, they have such huge amounts of cash on hand that they can float a lot of different things for me. You know, if you quick pay me $200, I get that money immediately. Well, you don't technically have that money immediately. That's why you have pending transactions. It may take 5 days for that money to clear.
Right.
You know, when I get my direct deposit tomorrow at 4 a.m., like that money's not technically mine yet. It's not been completely transferred to me. Chase is giving me a loan on it,
right,
but they can do it because they have such huge amounts of cash. So I know I have no information. This is just a guess, but I would say that if like a JP Morgan Chase gets in on a Ripple coin and can lend to it the right amount of cash so you can start floating some of these times to make it instantaneous. You have the network already with things like Chase Pay and Zelle and relationships with all these major corporations, so you can start rolling out an Apple Pay-like feature with your currency. You have the capital to build an entire tech team to start creating something. So like to me, something like a Ripple is probably a smart move, because once you get these big banks, these big banking institutions into the game, then you're going to see some of these coins start to, they have the experience. They know we have to make it easy to pay. That's what's going to make this coin survive. Like to me, Bitcoin is a speculative play. Like it's not a currency to me. So it isn't something that I'm going to use long term because I don't know how to use it. Like if it were more advantageous for me to use Bitcoin as a currency than the United States dollar, I totally would. So, but I would also say that when you play with a JP Morgan Chase, you're playing by elite institutional rules.
Yep.
People that control the finance of not only the United States government, but the World Bank. You know, Jamie Dimon is one of the elite bankers in the world, and they control the money, and so therefore they control world governments, and they're the globalists that Alex Jones rants against, and so they're not necessarily going to be friendly to a cryptocurrency that they can't control. So when you start getting these big banking institutions into the game, they're going to make it really easy to use to try and kill off the smaller independent Bitcoins of the world, so you can use ease of use. But you're also giving up the thing that makes it special, which is the lack of government and banking institutional control. So it's a double-edged sword there, in my mind. I mean, tell me if I'm wrong.
No, I think you're right. I think the biggest reason why crypto hasn't been picked up is because of usability.
Right.
I think that's why Coinbase is good for people, because it has made getting in the door easier. But like you said, if Paxton asked you to get Dash, if you think it's hard today, you should have seen me trying to buy it 2 years ago.
Right.
It was a pain in the ass. And I kept placing orders, and like I would say, hey, I want this many Dash, and like I would get an order through, and I was like, why don't I have all my shit? And they would be like, well, we don't have a supply for it.
Yeah.
I was like, what do you mean you don't have a supply for it? Like, we don't have it to give to you. I was like, well, all right. So then I had to like go and source my Dash from like 3 different places. And I think I walked out with like 37 of them total in the last like 2 years. And then I sold them all in August when it was like $450 or something a Dash. For Pivx, because people said I was going to name drop it, but Pivx is a fork of Dash, and they do even more things to make it a little bit more secure. They've created a thing called they didn't create it, but one of the guys that's on the developing team, it's called Zero Coin or Zero Lib is a library. It literally makes it completely anonymous. So.
Okay.
It's I don't even want to get in the weeds because I don't fully understand it.
It's
but
PIVX if people want to go
yeah.
and research it.
It's today it was like 4 or something, and before I got here it was 575. So I think I made like almost $1,000 today. Like, that's how much it's fluctuated. I own a stupid amount of this, but yeah, it dropped back to 539. So I've lost probably $500 since we sat here.
Well, there's no, but see, there's risk to this because there is no FDIC. Like
Right.
if you just lose your wallet, you're screwed, right?
Right.
Like if Coinbase just folds and they have a server outage, I'm out of luck.
Right. Well, and that's what I'm saying. Like, and that's why it's very clear to what people need to understand is you're not putting your money into an account like a bank account. You're putting money in a physical, well, I won't say physical, a virtual wallet. So if you lost your wallet at the park, the FDIC is not going to replace your $50.
Right.
It's the same concept. And that's what you have to kind of remember is like, okay, this isn't a institution. This is a currency. These people are hosting it. If that's where you put your stuff is in some sort of cloud. If it gets lost there, they're probably not going to protect you either. You might pay something monthly for some sort of backup service that has like 99.9% uptime and like off, tapes that they can pull back if things go badly. But if it was to get stolen, you're screwed. Like you're not going to get it back.
I just remember I lost $100 once as a kid, and
That would be awful.
and my mom goes, "Sorry." And I go, "You're not going to give me $100? I'm feeling sad." And she goes, "Your feelings are not my financial problem." I was like 10. I was like, oh shit, capitalism is bullshit.
Solid
Where's
financial
Obama?
losses.
Where's Obama and the FDIC to make me feel better? Rick says, put it into a hardware wallet. What is a hardware wallet?
So there are different ones, and it's Trezor. I always want to say something else, so I'm looking at the notes because I'm cheating because this is complicated stuff. So Trezor is one of the more popular wallets. It's been around, I think, longer than the other one, which is Ledger. Trezor is more expensive. I remember I was listening to Anarchast and years ago, and they were, pimping Trezor and Ledger. The biggest complaints I have for hardware wallets are that they don't support a ton of cryptos. So if you're doing like the top 5 or probably the top 3, you're probably fine. But if you scope outside of that, some of them don't support a ton of things, and I don't know how that works. I don't know if the devs have to like work with the companies that provide the hardware wallets or what that relationship looks like. But I do know the dev teams are typically responsible for getting on exchanges and working with exchanges. So it's not like the exchanges go out and say, "Hey, we want to pick you up." It's usually the dev teams reaching out to them, and then everybody coalescing and coming together. So. But yeah, Trezor, Ledger, and then there was like a clone. Somebody took like the Trezor code base, I believe, and created another one called Keep Key, which actually has a really nice interface. Trezor looks like your phone from like 1990.
Okay.
It's a very mechanical looking device. Keep Key is a little bit more modern-esque. Like it's, I would say it's about the size of a credit card, it looks like, and maybe a half inch to 3/4 of an inch thick. And it has, I think, a bigger LED screen.
And these are kind of like buying an external hard drive for your Bitcoin?
Yeah, essentially, yeah. They're offline, and it just stores it. Like, they get stored on there, and some of them have, like, backup services attached to them, which, again, to me kind of defeats the purpose. But, yeah, like, those are 3 brands you can look into if you're looking to store your coins in a hardware wallet. I don't know if you have any more to add to that.
So I guess I would add another question to the resident expert here.
Sure.
What would be the benefit of a hardware wallet versus a paper wallet if you're just hodling or whatever?
So I will say with these, like Trezor and Ledger, I don't know if Trezor can be updated over network. If someone online knows that, they can definitely let us know. But the current version of Ledger, the Ledger Nano S, cannot be updated like just sitting on the table or sitting in your drawer or wherever. They have a new one coming out, or it is out, but it gets really bad reviews. That is Bluetooth, so you could like sync to it and then do some transferring so that we don't have to connect it. But to me, I don't know what the benefit is over a paper like versus hardware. I don't know why one would choose. I guess like the biggest thing is you can keep adding to it versus where if you printed one, you'd have to like, I don't know.
Just keep a big folder of printouts with.
What the hell is a paper wallet? What are you people talking about?
So you can talk about them if you want.
So, we're talking about, okay, you buy some. It's either you can keep it on Coinbase in the exchange, which we said don't do in case they go under. You can get this hardware wallet, which keeps all of the public and private key on a piece of hardware, basically a USB drive.
Right.
Or you can basically print out on a piece of paper all of the key information to create that wallet, and it's completely offline.
Cool.
Correct. Yeah.
So it has zero chance of getting hacked.
Right.
Because it's all of the information is printed out on a piece of paper.
And then you could put that in a firebox.
Correct.
Next to your grandmother's pearls or whatever.
Right.
Correct. Now, if you lose the piece of paper,
You're screwed.
But it's very secure, and you don't have to pay $100 or however much dollars these hardware wallets are if it's not something that if you're not exchanging it often.
Right.
Personally, I would spend more money on a hardware wallet than I have in crypto right now. So
yeah, the Ledger is the more frugal purchase you could make. You can buy it off of Ledger's website in euros and I think it equals out in USD to like $75. You can buy it on Amazon from a US shipper for about $99. And then you can purchase from eBay also for about $77 last night. So
okay, and yeah, so Airbits was something that Harry Price recommended. And Harry made a good point in the chat here. Paper has, if you print something out on your my Canon printer that Ryan Ripley graciously donated to We Are Libertarians on our Amazon wish list, which I use all the time, as you can tell. Doddle up. This'll fade.
right.
Like this ink on this paper will fade, and if it's 20 years from now, that could be a real problem. So you got to be careful. But I just wanted to cover before we start jumping into a few more questions here. We've been answering questions. We just haven't been shouting out names. But online, what kind of wallets are there online? Coinbase, Bittrex. It's too close to Bittner for me. Binance, Binance. On the desktop, Bitcoin Core, Altcoin Cores, Multibit, Hive. Mobile wallets on Android, Mycelium with a C, Coin Wallets, Coinium, iPhone, Jax, JAXX, Coinbase. I couldn't tell you how to pay with my Coinbase wallet, though.
Well, yeah, you can.
Yeah, I'm sure you can. I guess I haven't looked into it at all.
No, you can't. But so typically, when it comes to, I guess you're talking about like doing commerce with it. Is that what we're saying?
Yeah, I guess like if I do find some place, let's say Amazon starts, and I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that Amazon's going to start their own cryptocurrency that you can then buy into,
right?
And then because Amazon already runs half of the world,
they own ships that they ship stuff from China, or at least they were looking into it,
right? Yeah.
So, I was going to say, but there is a service. One of the more popular ones. There's definitely more now, but one of the more popular ones at the time was BitPay. You can set up stuff with Coinbase to accept crypto and also pay with crypto. So I would say I've done I've spent Bitcoin mostly giving to Wikipedia during Christmas. So I typically will either go out of my way to buy Bitcoin, which I will not do this year. So hopefully they accept Litecoin or something else. But because of the fees. But I would typically, if I didn't already own some Bitcoin, because back then I used to carry a little bit more than I do. I don't carry any now. But I think last year I didn't have any, so I went and bought some and used that to send to them, just so like they understand that like there's a need for it.
Right.
Plus, hopefully they hodled and that $5 or $10.
Brief detour. What does hodl mean?
So we keep saying it, and it's just kind of like an internal joke at this point. But there was a Bitcoin Talks forum, and some guy like was talking about holding, and in the title he said, "I'm hodling," and he's like, "I've written it twice. I had the D twice." He's like, "Fuck it, you know what I mean." So like, and everybody's just like, "Oh, this is gold." And like, I screenshot it and I sent it to someone today, and I said like, because I was reading through the forum post, and it was like 2013 when this actually happened, and or maybe it was like December 2013 or something. But somebody goes, "This is going to be memed." Like, it has been, like, right, like now it's like everywhere. Like, everyone, it's really funny as like I don't ever say it unless someone's saying it, but in all the groups you see people saying it, and I feel like it's like one of those things that people are doing to be cool. Right. It's like when people are like, "Who's my guru?" You know, like it's like, no one's your guru, guy. So but yeah, it's just like a little internal like joke about holding your Bitcoin or holding your crypto.
Right. One specific question here. Pete Reese, why is my buy pending so long? Well, there's a couple questions there. It depends on what exchange you're on, how you're using it, but the buy, so like if you're using Coinbase, for instance, if you put in your debit card, the Coinbase transaction is going to go through immediately because you have debit and credit card Visa protection on that purchase, essentially.
It's limited, though.
Yeah, and so you have a limit there, but it'll go through immediately. But if you do what I did, which is you hook up your bank account to it, and you do an ETF, a draft from your account.
ACH.
ACH, I'm sorry. Yeah, ETF's the Exchange Traded Fund. But an ACH transfer, then it's going to take 5 days for that to clear. So for me, it was taking in and out of my savings account 7 days total with Chase. So your buy is probably pending so long because you hooked up your bank account. So just be aware. So I just transferred out of the Coinbase wallet, the USD wallet, into my savings account, and it took 3 days. Or no, it took 5 because I did it yesterday on a Wednesday, and I get funds on Tuesday. So just be aware of that, just so you know. That's why it's taking so long. Shane Lackey on Facebook wants to know, can you get in without your Social Security number?
Definitely. You can get in with as anonymously as you want to or as quickly as you want to. It's kind of the trade-off, I think.
How and where could I do that should I wanted to? Move my drug... I mean...
Your drug money, that's the USD.
Right.
Well, I mean, I think you mentioned the ATMs, right? Yep.
They require some stuff, but I don't know. I'm trying to remember you have to set up an account, but I don't know how much they ask for. I don't know if they like took my picture or what, but yeah.
So, ATM is one of the more anonymous. Yeah. Coinbase, they got your bank account number or your credit card number or whatever.
You could, in theory, I think you could. So I was playing around with doing anonymous stuff with USD one time, and or trying to buy like certain things that I didn't want people to know I had that are legal to own. I just didn't want people to have recollection that I own them, or any way to track it down. I should say, not recollection. But anyway, so NetSpend is a debit card system that you can go and buy at like your Dollar General. And they charge some heavy fees, but so that's the thing with privacy most of the time. And anyone who does private stuff knows that there is a premium to do stuff anonymously. Right. So, like NetSpend, I think you could probably hook up a NetSpend card, fund it, and then use that on Coinbase to buy up to like 100, whatever they set the limit is when you sign up. But if you're going to do that, you also probably want to invest in a VPN service, which also is going to cost you money. So, which you can buy with Bitcoin. So if you are interested in VPN service, let me know, because I have an affiliate link I could send you. And maybe Chris will eventually become an affiliate because it seems like it should pertain to libertarianism. And, but anyway, you can buy it with Bitcoin, and I don't know if I actually ended up doing that or not, but definitely if you're going to buy on any kind of exchange, I'm not saying I do this, but if you're wanting to be anonymous, use a VPN service, and then get some more.
No, one of the things I was reading when I was thinking about it is you can find someone locally. This is basically a person-to-person exchange who has Bitcoins that they're willing to sell. You give them US dollars, they give you a code, and you anonymously own some Bitcoin. Of course, there's inherent risk of meeting a stranger on the street and giving them cash money for Bitcoin. But if you want to be anonymous and stay offline, that's the most
anonymous way to do it.
Most anonymous, yet creepiest, maybe. I don't know.
There's a website called localbitcoins.com. I don't know if that helps you pair up to do people. I've never used it. But I know like people in all the crypto groups in Facebook that I'm in will, pimp that website up. So I don't know if like you can like meet up with local people, because that would actually be kind of cool. And I know there's a review system in it, which is okay. So that you have someone, I don't want to say they're arbiting, but at least there's some sort of like review system going in. So, you're not like meeting Joe Frank, who's just going to like beat you down for $100. But I would also argue you should probably look on Meetup. So the first time I ever went to a Bitcoin Meetup, there was no group. There still isn't. That's why I created the Indiana crypto group, or not in our crypto, Indiana crypto group, was just to kind of bring the Indiana people together so we have a place to chat. But I sent you that guy's name, but he ran the only reason I knew of him, I think, was because of Maya and the vape shop in Irvington. And he operated like one of the first Bitcoin ATMs in Indiana.
Right.
So, but anyway, he leads a meetup a meetup that funnels through meetup.com. And I went to that and met some couple people that way. And that's how I actually ended up with my last time I ever owned Bitcoin. Somebody wanted like $200 worth. I was like, oh, not a problem. I got Coinbase. I'll just buy it, and I'll, you can swap it out, whatnot. And I bought it, and I was like, where the hell is it? And I only had a maximum daily draw of $100. And I was like, look, dude, I'm not going to get this till Friday. So I was in the same situation. So I was like, I gave him his $200 back. I'm like, hey man, my bad. And then the Bitcoin jumped up to $600. So I made $400 off the deal or whatnot. And then, I think I took that back out, what I put in, and then took the other money. And I think I took 400 out and then used the 200 to like get into Dash or whatever. So,
Ron Holland asks, what are the best anonymous wallets to get into? I mean, what are the best anonymous ways to get into Bitcoin?
So, yeah, that question was confusing to me. Because I don't know what you mean, what it was meant by anonymous wallets. If he was talking about anonymous crypto, like the currency itself, Dash is pretty anonymous. There's Zcash, which some people like. I've tried to buy it, and that's how I actually lost some crypto one time doing some shape-shifting. Shapeshift.io is a
what?
Shapeshift.
Are you a fucking globalist? Did I let a globalist on my program? Are you one of those alien shape-shifting globalists? Are you a lizard? It's
kind of a cool exchange where it allows you to put some coins in of some whatever type of coin, and then they will give you an exchange for another coin.
Okay.
I forget who created it. I think it was one of the first Bitcoin guys. But anyway, I apparently I wanted some Zcash, so I think I had like Dash or Bitcoin, and I wanted to get some Zcash, and when I put my address in, I never got it. So I don't know what the hell happened to it, but I lost money. So anyway, Zcash. One of the more popular ones that you'll see in some of the groups is Monero. Monero is pretty promising when it comes to anonymity, but my biggest problems with it is it's not as slow as Bitcoin, but it's pretty damn slow. And Monero has also got pretty high transaction fees right now as well. So you can get Monero. I think Monero is going to have a lot of growth because it's talked about everywhere, and I can't seem to get people to buy into Pivx because they have Monero. But that is another one. So, and then my recommendation, and that's what I have right now, is Pivx. Pivx is like I said, it's a fork of Dash. Like I talked about the master nodes earlier. You can become a master node operator. It also works off proof of stake versus proof of work, which we haven't talked about yet. but essentially there are no miners for PIVX. They get minted. And there's inflation built in, but the act of creating anonymous coins burns them off of the chain. So that's a very complicated thing, but essentially you can mint Z PIVX.
I don't have the emotional strength to go through another explanation of any of this shit.
I know, right? So,
Like when you're like minting and then it burns off the inflation, I'm like, you are just making things up, sir.
When I read it, I'm just saying, like, I know from like a white, like not even their white paper, but like their sales pitch they have on their website where they talk about this stuff. But anyway, like that was what I thought was cool. So proof of stake versus proof of work, there are no miners. Ethereum moved to proof of stake, but PIVX has always been proof of stake. And what that means is without miners, you don't have power being used to generate these things. So I see that as a benefit. Because if some authoritative entity wants to shut it down, it's going to be really hard to know who has it. So what they do is you can stake, so you buy into it, right? And then the amount you own, you put up, you stake it.
Gotcha.
So you're putting it up. You're saying, hey, look, I'm going to keep this node online, and I'm going to own this much. I've got this much to put on the plate.
Okay.
And whoever puts all of their savings onto it, they also have master nodes. That's the one you need 10,000 of is PIVX.
Right.
But anyway, if you owned one PIV or one PIVX, you could download a wallet for your machine, your desktop or whatnot, put it in staking, and you would eventually make money for keeping that node online. So everyone who owns it and puts their wallet in staking gets rewarded for keeping a node online.
Okay. And do you have, Harry said you have to have a special processor or something to keep that online? Like
For PIVX, no.
Okay, for Bitcoin, I guess you
For
did.
mining.
For mining, you need, so mining used to be able to be done with like graphics cards, and you can do ASIC miners now.
Okay. So I guess this is probably a more simple question that I should have asked an hour ago, but like you have the coins themselves, you have are the coins the same as the exchanges? So, like, is there the Bitcoin exchange and the Dash exchange, kind of like the New York Stock Exchange? I mean, what is the difference between a coin, an exchange, and a wallet?
I gotta think about that for a second. Just
because, like, I know with GDAX, which
GDAX is what I call it. Yeah.
GDAX is something that was highly recommended by several people in the group chat, and it's an exchange, and you can, that's what Coinbase trades off of on that exchange. But I guess it's like you can have the New York Stock Exchange and you can have NASDAQ, and those are two different exchanges, and you can have the same stock on. No, I don't think you can. I think you have to have, like, no. If you have to choose NYSE or you have to choose NASDAQ to trade on.
I think your trading account, you could probably purchase from either one. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you go into, like, I don't even know what a broking stuff. I used to trade
exchange
for a
is
while,
like a brokerage. That's where we're getting at, right? It's not the New York Stock Exchange versus NASDAQ. It's a brokerage house, right? But there are exchanges.
Yeah, I'm trying to think like the best way to think about it. I mean, an exchange is just like a marketplace, right? Mm-hmm. Like, and that's all it is like, I've got this microphone and you've got that microphone, and I'm like, I want $14.50 for my microphone, and someone's like, hell no, $14.39, and like I buy that one, and then that if that keeps happening, that's what creates the thing, that's what drives the market down. But if you're asking and you're like, no, I want $14.50, you're like, I want $14.51, then like if someone buys, right, whatever they've been up buying, that's what kind of pushes that up. So, and then when people are buying it at that price, that's where like you see the market cap growing, or the volume is what I meant to say. And you can see this. So there's definitely a couple, like, we didn't talk about this and this wasn't asked, but if you get on to Netflix, there is one or two really, one of them's decent, and there's like a really good Bitcoin documentary on there. I think there's one on Amazon's delivery system, whatever they call it, I forget, just part of Prime, I guess. And there's some on YouTube. And one of them, there's an exchange. I don't know if it's still there or not, but in New York, I think, where like you could go and just buy, and like there's people like calling out, and they're like, I want to buy Bitcoin at this number, and like they could be like, I got it, I'm buying it, and then like you'll go and like trade in person.
Wow.
your Bitcoin across and stuff. So
That's interesting.
it's just a marketplace.
Okay.
For an exchange. And then a wallet is where you store the coins you purchase.
Right.
Those are protected by A, yourself, but B, you have, again, these hashes, and you have a public and a private key. Your public key is what you would give to people, and your private key is like what grants you access to your wallet. So.
Right. So Brent was asked that question, are certain wallets only compatible with certain exchanges, or are the two, wallets and exchanges, completely independent of each other?
Every exchange will have a wallet, but not that they're going to put your coins in.
Okay.
And then you would withdraw from the exchange into whatever other wallet you have. So
it's kind of like your LimeWire username is your wallet, but it doesn't matter what network you're entering. It can interact with that unique ID within your wallet.
I wouldn't say that.
Okay. All right. Strike that for the record. That was completely stupid. I apologize to the listeners. I'm an idiot. That's why we're here.
Again, it gets complicated, and it's hard to like boil down sometimes. Or distill.
So the way I understand it is, some wallets, quote unquote, can hold multiple types of cryptos, and
Right.
some wallets are for only the specific kind, be it Bitcoin or Ethereum or whatever.
Right.
So you might end up needing to have multiple wallets based on what types of crypto you're buying or how you buy them. You might have multiple wallets for one crypto.
Right. It just
And you
depends.
got to keep track of them all.
Right. And
Okay.
Yeah. So I was going to say, like, you're talking about, well, I don't want to say you're talking about this, but, I don't know if anyone's ever said it, but with freedom comes great responsibility. And that's kind of like how this is, right? Like you have to like own your shit. And that's kind of like part of what freedom is and why we can't just turn switches off.
Yeah. I mean, you pay, it's kind of like with, Chase, I pay them $12 a month or whatever in one of my accounts.
Right.
For all the services they give me.
Right. Administrative work.
Right. Which is stupid because they're, they don't need my $12 a month.
Right.
They get plenty of government money.
It's passive income. They have to do it anyways.
Right. Okay.
But
Go ahead.
Did that help? Did that clear up the murkiness there, or
I think it's just it is what it is. You got to have if I want to do, if I want to do Dash, then I need to fund out of my bank account into Uphold, and then if I want to do,
we can go through Bittrex for Dash too, but yeah,
right. So
or whatever.
So Chris Osborne asks, what's the safest and easiest way to buy a small amount? I'm worried about losing money to hackers and or swindlers. Like, to my mind, like, I'm really pleased with the Coinbase experience, and I felt that it was very safe. I felt like it's very well known. Like, I have had zero issues with Coinbase. And I think if you're just going to kind of dip your toe into the water, I would start with Coinbase. Like, just start there and see what it's like, and then look around. And while you're playing with it a little bit, because if you're impulsive like me and you're like, I'm going to put $150 into this week and see what I get, and I got 300, cool, I'm going to pull it all out, And so it's been like a nice little thing for me to just kind of look at, because I didn't want to lose $150. But it was money that I had that I could, that was my savings for the month that I could kind of play with.
Right.
Right. So you have the ability to kind of easily play with a little bit and get your feet wet, because once you start getting into the other stuff, like, I needed to understand the concept of how this stuff moves and what the market is like, and all the ups and downs of it. And Coinbase has been it's a very pretty app. It's easy to look at. It's easy to move money in and out of your bank account.
The mobile app works well too.
And that's what I'm using, is the mobile app, and it's just easy, and it kind of gives you a little view into it. And then if you want to go hardcore more into like GDAX or Dashcoin or Ripple or whatever, you're going to have a little better understanding than just diving right into something where you've got to download Airbits. And like, I downloaded Airbits the day I downloaded Coinbase, and I looked at Airbits and I went, I don't get this. No, thank you. And I was like, Coinbase is easy. So Now I could tackle that because 2 weeks later, I'm sitting here going, okay, I get the basic concept of how this works because of Coinbase. So it seems secure. You know, I don't know if it's secure or not, just as much as like even if I were a security expert like Harry, when Harry tells me and several other people tell me that Coinbase is trustworthy, I go, okay, these are people I trust.
Right.
You know, as opposed to just kind of looking with your eyes and going, this looks real sketchy.
Yeah.
You know, where some of these exchanges look sketchy.
Yeah,
so
they look awful.
So yeah, I don't know if you guys agree with that or not, but that's my advice is as a new person who's a couple weeks, a month or so into it more than you are, I liked the Coinbase experience. I thought it was helpful.
Yeah, I really enjoy the Coinbase experience. I think going into it, like I said, if you're going to jump into something, I would buy, not because I'm saying it's going to be worth anything, but just because of transaction fees and everything, I would go with like Ethereum or Litecoin over Bitcoin, because Bitcoin, like I said, their transaction fees have been outrageous.
Yeah, I would agree.
So, especially again, if you want to play, because that way any gains you get, you're not going to get eaten in fees. For that very nice experience that Coinbase provides, they do charge a fee for it. So that's why, you know, GDAX and all these other like Bittrex and stuff, they look more like your trading app. If you've ever traded stocks, you do ask pricing, you do bid pricing, you can set sells, you can set buys. It's very complicated if you don't understand the interface of standard trading applications. So
now, if you're just buying in, just trying it out, getting your feet wet, Coinbase, I think we all agree.
Coinbase.
Now, and like you said, you know, Bitcoin fees. So I put $100 in a few weeks ago.
Right.
By the time I paid Coinbase fees and then moved to a different wallet off the exchange, I was down 10%. Right. Now, of course, I'm up significantly since then, but it's just something to be aware of. Like you said, if you go Ethereum or Litecoin or something else.
Harry is saying cryptocompare.com.
Yep.
So, which, I
I
only paid $1 per transaction on Coinbase.
for Litecoin.
For Litecoin, for Bitcoin, for everything.
But that's because you did ACH.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So ACH is cheaper for them to do.
Okay.
They charge $4.99 for a transaction with debit card, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. So the more you buy, the bigger. I think I placed an order for Litecoin the other day for someone, and it was like $11.99 in fees.
Ooh, okay. So you do have to pay attention to that. Yeah, everything was $1 for me, and then like trading, putting it into my USD wallet, and then putting it into the Litecoin. At one point, I took out of Bitcoin into the wallet, put it into Litecoin, and that was $1 out and $1 in.
Either one of you can probably answer this then, and because this is new since I've been to Coinbase. Coinbase used to not. Maybe they did, but I just don't remember. I don't recall them having a USD wallet, but now they do. So can you upload from ACH? Can you create an ACH transaction into your USD wallet? And that way, like, you're not actually jumping in to either any of them. Like, you're not like, hey, I want to buy Litecoin at this number. Like, you can just say, I just want to fund my account, because this is how trading works, right? Like, you set up an ACH transfer, and usually there's like $1,000 minimum or something. But you can create an ACH transfer. Can you just do ACH into your Coinbase to the USD wallet that's inside?
Absolutely.
I think so, yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, there's so if I want to fund my USD wallet and I want to deposit money,
not from deposit, create an ACH transfer from your bank savings to the Coinbase USD wallet.
I better not hit deposit because that'll do it. But yeah, you can do that, and I don't know if I don't think there's a fee for it, but if you're going from, there's a limit. So if I want to go into Litecoin and I want to buy, I've got a $10,000 weekly limit. The bank limits for my savings account.
Jeez, bro.
10,000.
Flexing.
Yeah, but I mean, obviously,
let's do it.
I'm never gonna hit that.
Fuck it, let's do it.
I've never. Yeah, no. That's a lot of money for me.
You wouldn't be sleeping for weeks.
Oh, I would immediately be calling.
You'd be either really rich or really poor.
Oh, both. All right, so we need to start wrapping up. So, bottom line, somebody out there wants to get involved in cryptocurrency. What are the cryptocurrencies that you would suggest and recommend, and how would they do it?
We'll start with him, Jeff.
I don't know if that I can answer this. I mean, we said Coinbase. That's right?
First of all, we are not financial experts. We
Yes, we need a
are
disclaimer.
just dudes sitting around a table. We are not telling you to do anything. And, obviously we all have money. I have at least $2.80. So whatever financial, legal bullshit I have to say,
Exactly.
I want you to know that I'm saying financial advice is not what we're good at. But
Right.
we're just dudes who have done it. So for me, I recommend Coinbase because that's all I've played with.
Right.
And I think if you're at the very bottom, Coinbase was good, and I think Bitcoin, Litecoin, those two are going to go up. Ethereum seemed pretty stable. Like right now, they've been at 16 for about a week. So you're even when everybody thought that once there was an ETF fund and hedge funds were allowed to invest last Monday, like it didn't really change much. I mean, it's just fluctuated between 16 and 18 for a week. So I just don't think that I would get in and I would just say, all right, put in $100 and just keep it in there and just forget about it.
Yeah.
Well, don't completely forget about it, or you'll never get it back.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Like if you've got $300, put it in each of the three. But
Right.
I'm not the expert necessarily, but
Well, I'd say the same thing. Coinbase, I think you fully believe Bitcoin is in a bubble right now.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think it is in a bubble, but I think the bubble is still inflating.
Yeah.
So,
Which is very possible.
As far as is it going to continue to go up? Is it going to hit 20,000? Who knows, right? Think of it as just a fun experiment.
yeah, like that's why I say, like, if you put 100 in each one of these three, and if let's say you got $500 laying around after Christmas, put 100 into those three plus Ripple and Dash, and just leave them, and then see what happens in 6 months.
Right.
And it could be up to 80,000, and then you're rich. But if you lost $500 that you got for Christmas anyways, so be it. I mean, if you need the $500, if you're young stoned Aldrich out there who has he's 21 and is eating McDoubles to survive, then don't do that. But if most of our listeners can afford $100 per coin.
And then once you get familiar with the way the exchanges work, the way the fee systems work, and whatnot, do some more research on your own, then start maybe going into what you're going to talk about next.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm going to say a couple things. One, I'm not going to say like you should invest in these. These are the ones I find interesting. I don't necessarily put money on coins that could get growth. Like Rob every day tells me I should buy Litecoin, and I tell him to fuck off because I don't think it provides anything that Bitcoin already does.
Right.
So to me, there's no technology advancement that they're providing. So, but I agree, if you're going to get started, use Coinbase to get in, get your feet wet. And there's two reasons for that. You could also choose Gemini, which is another place that you can get USD to Bitcoin or whatever. So, and it's also that's the one. Gemini is owned by the Winklevoss twins, so it's also a highly protected. I don't want to say protected, but highly.
Which one was this?
Gemini.
Okay.
It's a USD to BTC. So those are the ones you need because those are your entry to any other exchange, anyways. Because most exchanges don't use USD. Most exchanges trade on BTC, like Bitcoin.
Okay.
So, which sucks because Bitcoin's fees, but there's been conversation around some Litecoin exchanges opening up where you can trade Litecoin for other crypto. But anyway, I don't want to confuse people. So Coinbase, USD, Gemini, you can also do USD to buy Bitcoin, Litecoin, and Ethereum. If you're going to purchase, I would do something like Litecoin or Ethereum because of their fees being lower. You don't want to get burned in fees. You also, what was I going to say? Oh yeah. So the other thing is, don't treat this like you're going to get rich. Treat this like you're gambling on penny slots.
Like you're going to lose any money that you put into that account.
Yeah. If you have gambling addictions, please don't do this.
Yeah.
This is not good for you. If you don't, and you're just like, I want to throw a couple $100 at it, do it, see what happens. Like you said, in 6 months, jump into some other coins. Like I said, in order to get into Ripple and Dash, unless the rumor that's been spreading today and yesterday is true, there was a rumor going around that Coinbase might open up to Ripple, Dash, and Monero, and maybe IOTA. I don't know, but I don't know. That's a super speculative rumor, but it would be nice for Dash, and I wish I would have owned it still because then it's going to explode, I think. But if you do want to migrate from these core coins, I use Bittrex. A lot of people also use Binance, and you will trade your Bitcoin for whatever it's worth. You will do an exchange to what other crypto you want. The crypto that I'm really ecstatic about right now, well, there's two, but Monero is one. It's like trading at like $300 a coin. And then Pivx, which is trading at $5. And I've already lost another like $400 since we've been sitting here and I talked about it last.
How much money do you have in this thing? Jeez.
So
also gambling problem that he knows that, Jeff.
Exactly.
Yeah, well, I just look at it all the time. So, but
He's
anyway,
an early adopter though, so he's
Right.
built up from back when Bitcoin was $3.
I've only ever put like $300 or $400 into this.
He's like me in the annoying comments on the big Facebook page. I go and look at the We Are Libertarians Facebook, like motherfucker, like but I'm not gonna look at that. 5 minutes later, oh motherfucker!
I'm making comments.
No, I'm just you're addicted to looking at your.
Yeah. No, that's exactly what happens. So, but anyway, if you're going to do that, I like Pivx a lot for multiple reasons, and the reason that outside of it being a Dash clone, because I was a huge Dash proponent, I still think Dash is better than most coins, because it's fast. Is the ability that everyone who's contributing is getting incentivized to do so. That way nodes stay online. That keeps the network safer. You will be, when you stake, you receive Pivx for your reward. So it's kind of like a savings account at that point. And eventually, if you got enough Pivx, you could become a masternode and get voting rights within the Pivx organization. So that is my big thing. It's also like 60-second confirmation times. It's super fast. It's super secure. They've rolled out wallets, which Monero does not have right now. So like I can download a Pivx wallet on my phone and I can put Pivx on my phone. It's supported by Ledger. And they are working, the team behind it seems to be really good as far as trying to work with the exchanges and get on more exchanges. Mm-hmm. They also were the first proof of stake coin to implement the zero protocol. Okay. So where it's literally a completely anonymous transaction. So they're doing a lot of dev work and doing a lot of stuff to make crypto as close to cash as possible. So
cool.
So this has been percolating around in my head as we've been talking here. What I think at the end of the day, when we're looking at alternatives to Bitcoin, what's going to be the Bitcoin killer at the end of the day? Right?
That was one of our questions too.
What's going to say Bitcoin? Yeah, it's worth $3 and not $11,000 or $17,000 or whatever it is today. What are the key components of this is what's going to be the game changer at the end of the day?
Speed. It has to transfer fast, right? Otherwise commerce will never do it. And by speed, you have different speeds that get measured. The first is the transactions, which are damn near instantaneous. And then you have confirmation. And I believe Pivx can get you 3 confirmations in less than a minute. Dash is 120 seconds, so 2 minutes. That to me, if you use like the private ones, like the ZPiv, it's going to be slower just because of the way that things work. But if you don't give a shit, if you're at CVS buying Tylenol, like you just use whatever, you don't care if somebody can see it. It's very, very, very quick. There's other ones that are quick too. It's just, it has a lot of stuff. I was already partial to Dash, and then I was like, oh, like this is like a Dash fork that is even extending on what Dash was doing. Right. So that was my biggest thing. A lot of people don't like that it's proof of stake, but that's the other thing that I think is going to be important is that countries are where, Bitcoin is using the amount of countries, or the amount of power that like Nigeria does or some shit, but it's going to, I look at it as like marijuana growing, and the authoritative peoples.
You're talking about actual energy power plants.
Yeah. I'm saying like
Bitcoin to power these computers takes the energy
required to power like
Nigeria, which
Nigeria
is
or something.
250 million people in Africa.
Which they may or may not all have power. Like,
that seems mildly racist, but probably accurate.
no, that's what I'm saying. I mean, like that's what. So that's the thing we never talked to is like what crypto does for third world countries, but which is very important. And we might have show notes or something that I can add. But there's a couple podcasts if you're really interested in this that I would also recommend that aren't necessarily libertarian based, but are interviews with people who are really close to the crypto scene and can really elaborate on a lot of things on what.
What are the names?
Future.
What are they?
So there's an interview by Tim Ferriss with Nick Szabo. Mm-hmm. So just Google like Tim Ferriss, Nick Szabo. Mm-hmm. Szabo is Szabo, I believe.
Okay.
He does a good job. Like Nick is like one of the first, or not one of the first, but one of the original like cypherpunks that kind of like was into like this crypto stuff a long time ago, or CryptoPunks. I don't know, whatever they call them. But and he actually created like a digital currency before, but he didn't have. I don't know if it was the double spend problem, but like there was a problem they ran into. So anyway, Tim has an interview with Nick. It's really good. Nick does not do a lot of interviews. Tim's podcasts are typically 3 hours long, so
this audience will love them.
Yeah. I mean, 2 to 3 hours long. He kind of talks about what a miner does, and he associates it to like putting the amber on, like, I don't know, the mosquito or something from Jurassic Park. There was something to do with amber, I remember, but laying amber down. And then Kevin Rose, who is friends with Tim, but Kevin Rose is from Screensavers and stuff back in the day with Leo
Didn't he
Laporte.
start Dig? Was he?
Yeah, so he left Tech TV and stuff and started Dig.
Right.
But anyway, Kevin has his own podcast as well, and he interviews. I'm gonna butcher the name. It's like Andreas Antonopoulos or something, but he's like one of the core Bitcoin guys as well, and does a ton of talks. Okay. So, and like I said, I can give you the links to those. If I don't know, show notes.
Yeah, I'll link them. I'll put them in there.
Cool. So yeah,
send me whatever links that and Harry, if you're watching, send those links to me, and then I'll put them in the show notes for people.
Yeah, those. I mean, like those have been some of the best podcasts I've seen. I highly recommend the Bitcoin documentaries, just to get a history about it, to kind of see how things work. There's a Bitcoin documentary where a guy tries to live on Bitcoin for a week, which I think it's the same dude that does. It's the same dude that did Palm and all that stuff.
Okay.
He just came out and said that he likes women to. I don't know.
Spurlock?
Yeah, Spurlock.
Morgan Spurlock.
I think Morgan Spurlock does it. I think it's Morgan Spurlock that does the live on Bitcoin for a week thing.
Okay. He's kind of a douche, to be honest with you.
Yeah, but it was kind of cool, like, to see him try to do something. So
yeah, right.
But yeah, so I don't know where I was going with all this, but
all right. Well, that's good enough. So I think we kind of gave people a good overview, and then we've given them a good introduction. And then if you want to check it out, sorry for whistling through my teeth there. And like I said, if you have further questions or more recommendations, hop into our Facebook group, wearelibertarians.com, and then the link is right there. Let's do final thoughts. So you boys may not know this, but at the end, we give everybody a chance to just give final thoughts for the episode. Shameless self-promotion if you want. Whatever you want to say, it's your chance. Jesse, you're returning, so I'll let you do it first,
okay.
And then we'll go to Jeff. Final thoughts.
Final thoughts. Really pay attention to blockchain technology because it is going to change the world. It already has. And you can find me on Facebook at Jesse the Libertarian, I believe, on Facebook. And I think just at Jesse Riddle on Twitter.
Okay. Jeff?
Hey, I just want to say thanks for having me on the show. First time here, so glad to be sitting next to these guys. And same thing. I think blockchain and crypto at some point is going to be the next big thing in a way that we don't even understand yet. So it's one of those things that will be important. Just pay attention, like you said, and that's about it. So maybe you'll hear me again on the show some other time on another topic.
Yeah,
Who knows?
love to have you back.
Thank you.
Yeah, the Google World Food Bank and blockchain, and you'll find an article, I think it was Foreign Policy or Foreign Affairs, or somebody wrote an article recently about how blockchain technology is changing world food relief. Blockchain's being put into used to change a lot of different aspects of society. I mean, and in positive ways because it's pro-liberty. You know, like the microloans, for instance. There's towns in India that are, called kidney towns, where basically people sell their kidneys in these Indian towns because they got a microloan, which was started by Barack Obama's mother, which was supposed to change the third world by these little microloans of $1,000 will change the lives of third world peasants to start businesses and industries like during the Industrial Revolution. But the problem is they never got the businesses off the ground, but still had to pay back the $1,000, which to use me like $100,000. So they sold their kidneys. They sell their kids' kidneys. So, blockchain is pro-growth. It's pro-liberty as opposed to a loan where you're owing a bank. And so in my mind, this is something that is really exciting, and I'm excited to kind of learn a lot about it, and hopefully you are too, and we will continue to talk about this in future episodes. Not every episode, not a Bitcoin show, but I'm gonna dig into this a little bit and see what's out there. All right, thank you for joining us on this episode of We're Libertarians. As I mentioned at the end, this is my last show for the year. I will be taking some time off at the end of today is December 14th, and starting tomorrow, I get the rest of the month off from work. And so what I always do is shut down for half a month, and I just lay around the house and enjoy the holidays with my family, and I try not to follow too much news and get all worked up, and don't do much. I hibernate. I'm going to clean the place a little bit, but yeah, so I will be taking the rest of the month off so you can get caught up on all the shows. Harry may may guest host a couple shows. I will be doing one show, though, and I want you to tune into this because I think it's a really cool idea. So what I'm going to be doing is taking two candidates. They're going to square off in a entrepreneurial type showdown where we'll have two experts judging the answers of the two candidates. So I want to know questions that you would want to ask a candidate, just generic questions about the strength of a campaign. What would it take for you to support a candidate? These are candidates that range from nonpartisan offices, Republicans, Democrats, Libertarian Party people, Green Party people. I don't know about green, but anybody who's libertarian, what I'm saying is I want nonpartisan. I'm not going to be partisan about this, but I want to kind of create a new model for giving candidates a chance to pitch themselves to this audience, which is one of the biggest audiences in the libertarian movement, and help them get exposure and donations in an interesting way that you want to listen to. So we're going to do a test episode on January 29th, or on December 29th, and I hope you tune into that and check that out. We're going to work out some of the kinks, so that's not going to be the final. What I'm thinking about is maybe like a membership club, so you pitch in $10 a month, and you get to be a voting member of the group, or you get to ask questions or something. So just trying to work through this idea. So I want to kind of crowdsource this idea, because we've got this big platform and candidates need exposure from the liberty movement to the libertarian movement, and I want to be a part of that moving forward. So check that out. I think that's going to be kind of a cool idea that I'm working through with a couple people, so check that out. Yeah, it has been a great year. This has been, the best year of my life. This has been the best year of the podcast, in my opinion. Very transitional year for the podcast. A lot of changes, a lot of different experiments, but I really feel good about where we're at as a podcast, as a community, as a movement, and I thank you for being part of it. I thank all the Patreon folks who are a part of it, Brandon Luke, Christy Avery, Craig DaCosta, Jason Doolittle, my $100 a month subscribers, first and foremost. Yeah, a lot of growth in the podcast. 1,000 new people every single month added to the podcast since the end of the 2016 elections. We're heading into another election year where it should be another wild and crazy ride every single day, and we're going to continue to help make you sound smarter when you talk with your friends in 2018. I hope that you will join us, that you will continue to promote this podcast, that you will join our communities and get to know some of the other listeners. So enjoy the holidays with your family. Happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas, Happy Kwanzaa, Hakuna Matata.
Yule.
Enjoy your Yule logs, and please don't eat the random chocolates in the Fannie Mae box, because you may end up with toothpaste when you think it's a chocolate-covered cherry. Like I did the other day. I was hoping it was a chocolate-covered cherry, one of my favorite candies, and I ended up with toothpaste. So, until 2018, we say be good to each other. We are supported by listeners like you. Donate per month or make a one-time donation through PayPal or Patreon at WeareLibertarians.com. Join in on the conversation. Visit the sidebar at WeareLibertarians.com and join our Facebook group, meet other listeners, and get our daily news dump.
The Boss Hog of Liberty podcast is the latest hit on the We Are Libertarians network. Each week, Jeremiah Morrill and Dakota Davis explore life in Henry County, Indiana.
It's a show about our circle of friends, public officials, and our experiences. 80% observation, life, humor, and 20% politics. Boss Hog of Liberty is the day-to-day happenings of Henry County, Indiana, which is just like your community. Add us on iTunes and sample us today.
Dear Leader would want you to.
The Johnny Rocket Launchpad is Liberty. Each week we strive to bring you the best guests in talk radio. The Johnny Rocket Launchpad delivers weekly interviews of noteworthy politicians, experts, and activists. The Johnny Rocket Launchpad is bringing the party to the Libertarian Party and launching ideas in your direction. Check us out at JohnnyRocketLaunchpad.com. You can hear me, Kurt Nelson, and the beautiful Heather Nixon talk about the ideas of liberty. Rock and roll.
Hey guys, this is Roger Paxton, and if you're fed up with the government running every single aspect of your life, but you're not listening to the Lava Flow podcast yet, then what's wrong with you? Check us out at thelavaflow.com, or just go back to sucking up to the government. The Lava Flow podcast, striking the root every single episode.
It's time to shake up your podcast feed, folks, by subscribing to Lions of Liberty, the only libertarian variety show out there. Spend Mondays with me, Mark Claire, as I feature in-depth interviews with great names in the libertarian community and fun roundtable discussions.
Electric Liberty Land with me, Brian McWilliams, every Wednesday, your weekly dose of comedy, culture, and liberty.
And Felony Fridays with me, John Odermatt, where I expose injustice in the broken criminal justice system.
Find us on iTunes, Stitcher, and at lionsofliberty.com.
Thank you for listening to the We Are Libertarians Network. Get our other shows at WeareLibertarians.com.